guys, Alex at Empire Arms here. We're going to be doing a video today going over different parts we use in our rifle builds. Rifle build I'm building for myself, what I am personally putting into it. A lot of these parts are stuff that we personally believe in through the shop, companies that we have a good relationship with. Just a little overview here of what we're doing for my future coyote gun for this fall. So first of all, we got a Defiance Action. We actually did a marking variance through Defiance that actually puts our name on the actions here. It's a Renegade Action with a 22 arc bolt face on it that we got black nitrided with a 20 MOA rail. So that's going to be kind of the heart of our build. Barrel wise, we like to use Excalibur carbon barrels. That's what we've had the best luck with so far. This is a 22-inch ultra light carbon contour, 7 twist, and then we have the half 28 muzzle threads that will accept our AB Raptor 6 with a 5-inch reflex, and then it's got a bull barrel, so this will actually recess over my barrel, keep it a little more compact package overall when I'm hiking around. Trigger wise, we run exclusively Timney triggers. We're a Timney OEM and distributor for them, so everything we do here gets a Timney. With it being a hunting gun, I'm gonna run the Elite Hunter here, just because I don't need a 8-ounce trigger in the freezing cold and setting a round off missing a coyote. And then bolting it all together, I have my OG Macmillan Game Hunter that I did a custom pattern on back in the day. Got a little bit of wear marks, but nice lightweight stock, so for rough numbers, this gun should come out about 9.5 pounds with the day scope on it, loaded, ready to hunt. So follow us along as we go through the journey. All right, folks, our next step here, I have my Mitutoyo micrometer. We're gonna measure our action for the length of what I have to cut the tenon to on the barrel. One of the things that we do here at Empire Arms that I don't necessarily know if it's kind of exclusive or if some folks kind of have a spec that they cut to, but every action we do, we cut exactly to what that action is for the tolerance we hold in-house. So know that every gun you get will be fit to your barrel, not to some print that somebody made up on a computer that should be about what your spec is. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take measure from my bolt face, or my action face, and I'm going to take and touch off on my counter bore, which will show you here in a second what your counter bore is. Alright, so our first number is going to be 815, and we want to measure in 2 to 3 to 4 spots just to make sure everything is square. So I'm going to take and move it to a different part of my bolt face. Alright, we have 815 and a half and 815 and a half, so we're going to call it 815. So 815 is going to be the distance between the front of our action and the front of our bolt face here. Next number I'm going to get is from the bolt face to the front of your lugs on your bolt. Next step, we're going to measure our bolt here. With the bolt, we have our bolt nose. This is our bolt nose, and then we're going to measure to the front of our locking lugs on our bolt. That's going to be how deep we have to cut our counterbore depth into the barrel. So bring our micrometer way out, and we're going to measure this on each 4 points on each of these lugs. And with this, I do want to make sure I move out a little bit. A lot of bolts have a slight radius from the tooling they use, so you want to make sure when you put this in there, you stay away from the edge of that counterbore nose, get your measurement. So we're at 150, 149.5, 150, and 150. So counterbore we're going to cut is 150 thousandths in there. We're going to write that number down as well. Now I'm going to face the end of the barrel off after we cut off the button, people call it. Just got the barrel specs on it. I like keeping those just so I know what barrels we brought through here and kind of what we've been doing. I'm gonna take and face this off, make it all nice and square. Then we'll put it on our other machine and actually true it up to that spindle. So we're almost squared off here. We're just removing some material to get it square with this 3-jaw, just so we can put it on another machine with the tailstock. We still have a little bit on the bottom we need to take off, so now we'll take and do a little bit of a slower pass using the auto feed, and we'll get this face cleaned up. So I am just chamfering the inside of the bore here just so I have a nice seat, make sure there's no burrs on it for when it goes on to my live center of my tailstock. And then one little thing I like to do when I do this is, you see it's not going to want to move in there square without moving the barrel up. So what I do to ensure I'm on center is I loosen my jaws, I set my barrel in the tailstock, and then square it against my tailstock so I know when I grab it in the jaws I'm going true to the bore. So now I'm setting my compound to 59.5 degrees. We do 59.5 just because when we cut, we're going to be cutting on the angle for our 60-degree threads, and we want to cut on the leading edge. So we take a 1/2 degree off, so it's always going to cut the leading edge of our threads moving forward. Now that we got our tool post on, got our compound set, we're going to clean our ways off for any debris that might be under there before we tighten our tailstock down. So we'll take and tighten up our steady rest onto our ways. So now I have it set up on my steady rest, and our 3-jaw is going to hold the muzzle end. I'm going to give my cutter just a little bit of cleanup. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to touch off on that face we cut on the other machine, and this is going to make it true to the bore on this machine, and we can start cutting our tenon threads. So we'll take and turn the machine on. We'll do a scratch pass. Now from that ugly little finish we had, we have a nice, perfectly true surface to start cutting our muzzle, or our tenon for our action. Alright folks, just got the steady rest taken off, not worried about the goop on there. That's going to get probably cut off, or we'll just add some more later. So what I'm going to do now, I have my number written down for what my action measurement is going to be for our tolerance. So I'm going to take that, I am going to take and touch off on my barrel. I'm going to use my DRO to get me to my number, and instead of going to it, I tend to go a little bit shorter, just because as I'm cutting my pass, I'd rather be able to clean up my shoulder at the end than overshoot it, have to reset up and recut the face of my barrel again. So once I got my number where I know I'm going to be short, I zero it, and then I'll actually touch off, dial everything back, so then I kind of have a hard line on my barrel where I know I need to cut to. So all the fine sections are the same for their thread size. It's 1 1/16 or 1/062 by 16 TPI. One little thing that I learned from Alan Moore at Yavapai College, who I kind of learned under, is go a little bit under that nominal size, just so you don't have to worry about filing your threads down or them binding with the peaks and the valleys in the action with the barrel. So we're going to cut a little bit under that just to give it a little bit of free floating, but we'll hit our number for what our barrel is going to be at here, and then we'll get into threading. Surprisingly enough, Silencer Shop oven mitt just holding the barrel. Sometimes smaller barrels or carbon barrels, when we're cutting threads like this, can get a little chatter in them. They'll vibrate, so this just dampens the barrel. We could be doing it on a 4-jaw. My experience with 4-jaws, it's just as accurate as doing this. It's just more time to set it up. But if you get in there and for some reason your bore is off center from the outside as you indicated in, you could actually start cutting and be off center, where this lets me have it kind of float a little and it'll actually follow the bore line. So no matter what, this is going to be cutting on center, where if the outside is a little off and the bore is not perfectly true, you can run into problems with doing it in a 4-jaw. So again, just the way I learned it, I've done it both ways. This for me is just kind of the fastest way to do it and the most simple way for me to still get the same results. So we took our small pass and looks like I'm about 1/1000th and a half over the number I was shooting for, but we're close enough there to where we're aiming at. So we're gonna take and reset up here to cut some threads. All right, so we got a little Sharpie down so we can see what our threads are gonna look like. We'll do a scratch pass here first. So my cross slide is at a 0 with the handle down, and I'm going to touch off until my cutter just touches the barrel, and I'll zero my compound with that. I'll draw out, dial back to my 0, and just as a dummy step, I always take and reset my DRO on both axes so I know where 0's at. Now we'll take and set our lathe up for 16 pitch threads. So we'll take and start it up. We're going to send it through once, and we're just going to make sure that our machine is geared properly for our 16 pitch threads. Make sure that these line up, and looks like they line up just perfect, so we know we're going to cut 16 pitch threads. So moving forward, we're just going to keep driving that cutter in with our compound until we can thread the action on nice and smoothly. So we got our threads cut. We should be a little bit short of what our nominal depth is supposed to be. My rule of thumb I learned over doing all these barrels that I've done is as soon as you start getting really thin lines from our Sharpie, stop, check, make sure you don't overcut, because once we cut a thread, we can't add material back. So we're just going to take our action, try to screw it onto that barrel, and it should not screw on because I should still be short. So there it is, it just catches, but it doesn't want to go anywhere once it catches. So we're just going to cut another 5/1000ths and keep creeping up on it until this screws on all nice and smooth. We just did our final pass here, should be threading on nice and good. So we're getting our thread started here, start turning our Defiance action. And we'll get it started. It's going nice and smooth, no resistance as it's going on. So we're going to take and spin it all the way back. Make sure it's going to seat all the way. We still got to clean up our shoulder, so we're not worried about that lock up yet, but it's going all the way on nice and smoothly. One thing that I wouldn't say sets us apart, but that Alan Lohr, again, we used to call him the wizard, taught me in school is you want to have your thread smooth. Too tight can cause problems, too loose can also cause problems. Not necessarily detrimental depending on if you keep everything else tight, but one thing he taught me is anytime you cut threads, and a policy we adopted here at Empire Arms is anything that we thread to whatever it is. So this Defiance action compared to another action may be a different depth we actually cut our threads to. So everything fits to it. Muzzle devices, suppressors, muzzle brakes, thread caps, everything is cut to whatever you're going to put on it. We don't do any measuring by wires or any thread gauges. It's all to whatever device you are going to put on, just so we can make sure we have the perfect fit each time, and not hoping that your device is either on the looser end of spec or the tighter end of spec, or if our gauges are in spec or out of spec. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to take and clean up this end of my threads a little bit with a file, just get a little radius, it's a little sharp right now. Then we're going to take and clean up our thread relief and then trim up our shoulder. And then this is also why previously I left my threads a little short here. I can sneak up to get my measurement for my tenon length for that action just perfectly where I need it to be. So we'll clean up this and test fit the action and make sure our numbers are right. All right, that was our last 8 thousandths. We're just gonna double check, make sure we hit our number where we needed to. And we did. So now all we're gonna take is screw the action on. We're gonna make sure that shoulder is nice and square. One thing when you use a premium action, we always like to check to make sure our shoulder is nice and square after we get our number we need for our tenon, is when you put these premium actions on like Defiance, when you get them on and they set, they will click. I'm not sure if you'll be able to pick that up on video, but then you know you have a nice square shoulder when it clicks on and then clicks off. So now that's good. Our threads are nice and smooth. We'll take and do a little bit of cleanup on those just to pretty them up a little bit. And that is how your thread should look every gun that leaves Empire Arms. We clean up our threads at the end with a little bit of Kratex. It'll just kind of smooth the surface out, and then to make sure we get all that Kratex compound out, we hit it with a little bit of Scotch-Brite, a little bit of red, a little bit of gray, smooth it out, get nice smooth to the touch, and then there'll be nice smooth flowing threads when we screw our action on. So next step, we're going to set up here to cut our counterbore, and then we'll get into our chamber, and then we're off to the races. Now we're going to grab our counterbore tool. This one's specifically made by Manson for 22 to 6 millimeter. Just got 4 flutes on it. We can cut the counterbore a lot easier. The way I was taught, you can single point it with our crowning tool, but you get the barrel hot, takes a lot more time, you put a lot more stress on the barrel. This is just a lot smoother, gives a better finish, and is a lot more precise each time. So we're going to get this set up to start cutting that. All right, we're just test fitting our pilot on here. This is a .2185 pilot, fits nice and snug in the bore. Very little resistance, and we don't have any excessive movement in there, so our pilot's the perfect size. So we'll get this put in our reamer holder and start cutting our counterbore. All right, we're gonna take and use a little bit of Viper Venom. That's our go-to solution for any sort of cutting fluid. So we'll take and put a little bit on our counterbore tool, get it set into place. All right, make sure it's in there good. We're going to touch off with our tailstock, dial a 1 turn out so we know I have a good 0. Going to back it off that turn so we know we're not going to cut anything right away, because the reamer can catch and break, mess our barrel up. Put the machine turned on, and we're going to slowly feed this in and let it cut. And as it's feeding, I'm going to feed it a little more oil. All right, now we're going to use our little chamfer tool, chamfer this edge here. Just because it's going to make a burr, we want to get an accurate measurement off of what our first cut was. From there, we'll then proceed to make our second cut. And we should have made a 100 thousandths cut, but with the touch, we could be a little bit off, so we just double check it. So we got our counterbore cut, did a little bit more of a chamfer with our crowning tool on it, just to clean up that edge real nice. Now we're just going to screw it on, make sure that our tenon length and our counterbore depth is right. We should have a little gap in between our bolt and our barrel. You want to have a little bit of a gap in there because you need space for your brass to expand. If you cut it too tight, you'll hit pressure at weird times, and then what you can run into is you'll either ruin brass or you'll start destroying your action, because your lugs in your barrel, or your lugs in your bolt, are going to push up against your lug abutments in here, and you can actually gall them or seize them. We've had some guns come in before that they are too tight, and guys running factory ammo are sticking rounds in their gun, not able to open the bolt, and just a little bit of machining just to give it a little bit of air gap, and they shoot lights out. So we'll take and screw this on. Yes, this gun is wrong-handed, but so am I, so just deal with it. So again, nice smooth threads on there. And then it'll take and click up onto the shoulder. Okay, we're gonna put our bolt down. Bolt falls, so we know that our counterbore is right. Now we should have a little bit of movement there. So that's kind of the little tolerance we cut, again, that Alan Lohr, formerly at Yavapai College, taught me. You just want to have a little bit of space there for grit, grime, dirt, dust, debris, and then for brass to expand. Now we're going to take and get our reamer out. This is a 22 arc reamer by JGS. Just SAMI spec, we got nothing fancy here. And then the arc also runs off of 6.5 Grendel go, no-go gauges. One of the things that I picked up over doing this, because stuff happens, you get into the groove. I will only ever grab the go gauge when I start chambering, and I will leave the no-go on my bench just so I don't accidentally chamber it to the wrong gauge. And I give myself kind of a dummy line of, hey dummy, double check headspace, you're getting close. So got my little mark there, line them up with the shoulder. Gives me plenty of space where I won't over chamber it, but just a general idea of start looking and start making sure we're not going to overcut. All right, we're going to start the chamber now. Got my reamer in. I double checked, made sure my pilot is nice and freely moving in there. It's not binding. Okay, so that's all nice and good. We're going to put our tailstock up on it. I personally like to leave my floating pilot exposed a little bit just because I don't want to accidentally cut the throat early or have it bind on the rifling. So lock up our tailstock, and then got my tailstock set on 0. What I'm going to do is cut just up into the shoulder and kind of do an initial cut just to get the reamer started. And then after that, we'll move into about 50 to 100 thousandths passes until we hit our mark, and then we'll start checking headspace from there. All right, so there's our chips from our first pass, just cut up to the shoulder. Just gonna blow those off, get her lubed up again, and put her back in. All right, folks, right before we check our final headspace with our go gauge, we're just gonna make sure front of our action is nice and clean. We're gonna pull our gauge out. We're gonna make sure that's nice and clean. There's no chips or debris on there. Make sure there's nothing in our bolt that may change our headspace or give us a false reading. Just gonna pop that gauge back in. We're gonna make sure that our barrel is for the most part chip free. Now we should be able to take and screw this action all the way down, and this bolt handle should fall. All right, action snugged up. We'll take and turn the spindle a little bit just so we can get it nice and square. All right, and then if we push on the back, the go gauge is falling. So I purposely cut my personal chambers a little bit tighter. That's why you're seeing this little bit of a hang up at the top, because I cut it to about 1,000th or just under for headspace. But we don't have any bolt movement against that gauge. We have just a little bit of tension at the top. So again, I cut my personal chambers a little bit tighter. Depending on the application and what you request, we may cut yours as tight or just a little bit more loose if you have a hunting gun or a dangerous game gun. So let's grab our no-go gauge and make sure that doesn't fall. So now, if I did this perfectly, when I push this forward, it should not fall at all. And it does not. Okay. Now just to make sure that we don't have any sort of chips or debris in there, we're going to give it a little blowout. Then we're going to turn the machine on again and then push this Scotch-Brite into our counterbore to clean it up. So on this, we're going to put this in our other lathe here. We're just going to spin the barrel, polish up our little bit of steady rest marks here. With these barrels from Excalibur, when we order them, they all come pre-threaded. So if you do want to thread a barrel from them, you need to order it pre-threaded from them. We don't cut the threads. But you never want to stick anything into the crown unless you have the ability to recrown it. Well, I have the ability, but why would I want to do extra work if I don't have to? So we take these little brass centers and we stick it in on our tailstock center, run it into the barrel. Now we know that we're not going to hurt our crown. So we're going to take here, we're going to cover our ways on our lathe with an old scrap t-shirt. You can see this where I do all my sanding. A lot of folks will use different belt sanders or whatnot. I found out if I got a machine, I might as well just do it on here instead of having a barrel sanding tool running it on there. You really have to time it perfectly to get it just a perfect sheen. So we're just going to take and turn this up to 1,000 RPMs. We're going to take a little bit of 240 grit sandpaper first. We're just going to clean up these little marks on the end here that we made. So now we're going to clean it off. Our go-to for just general cleaning is the Hoppy's Gun Medic. So we're just going to give everything a spray down with that. We're going to take and clean up our threads, clean up our barrel a little bit. All right, once we get our barrel all cleaned up, get it all wiped down, make sure the bore is clean, make sure the counter bore is clean, double check the chamber, make sure our shoulder is nice and clean. We'll put that in our vise. And then one thing to note, anytime we do rebarrel any factory guns here, or you know, if you bring in your Remington, Winchester, Howa, whatnot, we actually do take in this process, we run your action, bolt, and firing pin assembly through the sonic cleaner, get it real nice and clean, and then we lube it up, put it all back together. This is a brand new action, so all I'm going to do with this is just take and just get the oil off when I was chambering it, give it a little spray down. Then we'll just take and make sure we get this all cleaned off, make sure the face of our action's clean. All right, before we install it on, what we do is we got some of this trigger butter. It's real nice, thicker grease. We used to use some other stuff, but it kind of gets a little messy. So take a little squirt of this, put it on the barrel. Especially if you're going to take barrels on and off, do put some sort of grease on there. You don't want anything to get in there, seize them up. So apply that in there nice and well, and then we're going to twist our action on. And to make sure that those threads are nice and coated, we'll bring it on, bring it back out again. And you can see how nice and coated those threads are. And then we'll just do one more pass to make sure it's all nice and coated. And then bring it up to the shoulder. All right, so that did click on all nice. So we're gonna go over the barrel vise, torque this barrel on, and finish assembly. All right, we got our barrel nice and torqued on. There is some controversy over a certain spec you need to torque these to. Here we just get them on nice and snug, you know, a little bit more than snug with our kind of longer breaker bar here with our Defiance action wrench. Really, the way we were taught in school is if a monkey can't take it off by hand or with, you know, non-special tools, it's tight enough. What we more so see is people over torquing barrels and you run into problems. But we got it all nice and tight. Our last step here is going to be double check headspace now that everything's torqued up and put on properly, just in case we crushed more than we thought or if we didn't crush as much as we were hoping to. So double check that anytime you do put a barrel on or off, even if it is a pre-shouldered, pre-fit barrel. Stuff can happen. We've had factory guns come in before that are short or long headspace, and then you got to chase it, and it just makes for a little bit of a frustrating day when you're chasing thousands, aka human hairs. So we'll double check that, we'll get our trigger put in and do final assembly on this. Off camera, we just took our little dental pick and popped off these two C-clips off of our Timney trigger. Took the pins out just because the Defiance has a side bolt release. We don't actually need the bottom bolt release that it comes with, so it doesn't harm anything with it on there. It's one of those I'd rather just not have it rattling around if I don't need it to. So we're going to set our trigger in. Punch through first to make sure my hole is lined up. And then these pins do come with the tapered side and a non-tapered side. So smart monkey would put the tapered side in first, get it started, and then we'll take and grab our nylon end of our hammer, get it started in there, and then once I feel it moving, we can pull our punch out because it's secured, take it, put it on the other side, we'll switch to brass, and just drift that one in. So same thing on the back, we got to move our safety back, line this one up, we'll start our trigger in, and then once this is moving, so once we're started, it's retained, we're going to also drift that rear one in now. Alright, so we just double check, trigger works, and then put it on safe. Safety does work. So next part there, we're going to drop our McMillan stock on, line our recoil lug up on this, open our bolt, and we'll just set that on there. And it's going to tension in because we got some nice tight bedding. From there, we'll just grab our Allens and tighten it up. All right, we're Athlon dealers here, so I'm going to throw on my Athlon Helos 4-20. This has really became one of my favorite scopes just because of the adjustment range on it. We have locking turrets, it's a lightweight scope. Should be the perfect combo for this being a coyote gun. And we have just enough clearance off my 223 to fit. Rail fits perfectly, it's already leveled, so we're just going to take and tighten our scope rings down to our rail here. All right, last piece of the puzzle again is our AB Raptor 6 with a 5-inch reflex. This is a 224 caliber suppressor. We're just going to tighten that down. We got some long threads on the muzzle here, so it's going to take just a second. Get it all the way down, cinch it up, pop our laser engraved 22 arc mag in, and we're good to go. That is the beginning to end of building the rifle. Stay tuned for us taking out to the range, seeing how it does on paper and at distance. We swapped out the stock for a KRG X-ray. The McMillan just had a little bit too low of a cheek weld for this scope I got on here, so gonna order a new part for that, but gonna test it out in this X-ray, see how we like it, and just verify our numbers today. So follow us along as we hit some targets. All right, we're gonna take a shot at a target 307 here from the prone. Just verifying some numbers, making sure everything's good with this chassis and everything. So 307, we got our Garmin set up to check our velocities too. We're probably about to hit a barrel speed up. So we got 0.9 for 307. So let's see how it lines up here. Hammered. 3085. So from our initial numbers, we're actually sped up about 42 feet per second so far, with about 120 rounds through this barrel. So next we're going to go out to a coyote at about 660, 650. We'll double check the range and we'll see how it lines up out there. All right, folks, we're going to go at a 657 yard sitting coyote. It's about just under full size from my buddy Travis Myers. Gonna take a shot at that. Dope is 3.6, and we've already sped up about 42 feet per second with our velocity. So got a little right to left out there. We're gonna try to get an impact on this and get some other impacts, verify some velocity and dope, and take you to 1,000. Impact. That's 2 rounds today, and we have an extreme spread of 1 with factory ammo so far. So let's see how that keeps going. All right, last target of the range session here, 1,034, full-size IPSC. Dope's calling for 7.9. Got a little switchy wind out there from 0 value interface to right to left, so we're gonna try to give a wind call at the time, somewhere between about a 0.4 to 0.9 on that plate. All right, that looked pretty centered, maybe a little right of center with a about a 0.4 on the right edge, so it came out to about a 0.6 center. So a little switchy wind, but everything's tracking. Velocity average is still 3,073 with factory Hornady black ammo with the 75 ELDM. If you want any rifles built by us, give us a call at 406-284-3000 or send me an email at alexcb@empirearmsandammo.com. We can build you something like this or just about anything that your heart may desire. One last little rundown on parts on this. We got a AB suppressor Raptor 6 with a 5-inch bull barrel reflex, Excalibur carbon barrel, Macmillan Game Hunter stock with a custom little paint pattern that I did, Athlon Optics Helos 4-20, Defiance Renegade 22 arc with a black nitride on it, and then a Timney Elite Hunter set at about 2 pounds, MDT 12-round magazine, and then a Sol Strategic bottom metal. So just a little bit of the parts that we normally carry in the shop we can get for you. But any rifle needs you need, any rebarrels or any suppressors, give us a call, send us an email on that. Hope to see you next time. If you have any ideas for future content, let us know, send us a message, give us a call. If not, if you like this video, want to see more, give us a like, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff. It'll help us kind of know what you guys want to see and what we can do moving forward. Thank you.